Legends, welcome back to another Ruck Infringement Podcast special guest interview. And today's special guest is none other than PJ Marsh. PJ, how are you, mate?
Yeah, all good. Can't complain at all, mate.
Well, that is good to hear. Of course, I'm your host, Joey, for the listeners there. Let's get straight into it. Now, for those that don't know who you are, mate, do you want to introduce yourself and who you played for?
PJ Marsh, real name I suppose is Peter John Marsh, but no one would know that. So it's PJ. Started my football career, I suppose, NRL career. I started that with the Parramatta Eels
Yeah.
and stayed there for a number of years, and then went over to the Warriors. Had a couple of successful years there before injury. Then went back to Parramatta, and then finished my career at Brisbane.
Yeah, very nice, mate. Very nice. Obviously, I remember you from the Parramatta days and the Broncos days as well.
Yeah,
Let's jump into when you were a kid, mate. Did you always love rugby league, and did you support a team?
yeah. Look, obviously, I suppose compared to some people, I'd consider late. I started playing rugby league when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
Some
Yeah.
people start playing when they're real little these days, but
Yeah.
8 years old in I was from I lived on a property outside of Gladstone,
Yeah.
and
Nice.
we used to travel in town. I played junior football with Wallabies in Gladstone. Um, so I started there, but and they were Balmain colours.
Oh, okay.
Wallabies were. So I initially just jumped straight on and supported the Balmain Tigers, obviously known as the West Tigers now,
Yep.
and played number 4. So I actually thought Andy Courier, he was a Pommy guy that played for the Tigers back in the day, and obviously Wayne Pearce and Mick Neal, all these old players I supported. But so Balmain, but then as soon as the Broncos came into the thing, I think every Queenslander just jumped ship straight away and
Yeah,
supported the
mate.
Broncos. And and then I sort of stayed on them for pretty much a fair while. And I suppose now I've jumped total ship. I'm a New Zealand Warriors fan.
Yeah, there you go.
That's my team. So yeah.
Yeah, very nice, mate. I love it. Now, let's talk about your NRL debut. Take us through that. And were you nervous?
Oh, look, of course, yeah, nervous. Yeah, it was a bit of a build up. I'd played in the lower grades at Parramatta for a number of seasons, and I think it was the first 5 or 6 games of 2000. We'd come off the '99 grand final win for
Yeah.
reserve grade with Parramatta, and had a really good season. And I suppose I was full of confidence. So I think the first 6 rounds of 2000. I had maybe 4 or 5 man of the match performances and was doing really well. And Brian Smith come up and said, "Just keep doing what you're doing." And it was we were fortunate at the time. Well, I was fortunate that Parramatta had a couple of really great players that were playing Origin, and Jason Smith happened to be one of them. A Queensland legend, and he
Yeah.
was he was called up for Origin, and Brian Smith midweek said to me, "Mate, you're going to be making your debut this week." And he goes, "We're not telling anyone."
Wow.
True Brian Smith form, he was
Of
always
course.
secretive about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And he said, "Look, Smithy will want to play, but he's not playing, and you're going to make your debut." And it was quite interesting because I'm not sure, but I'll tell you the story about it. I just that week I'd been chosen in the New South Wales reserve grade side
Okay.
and the residents team.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'd been playing really well, and I just said, my manager rang me and told me about it, and I said, "Yeah, mate, I'm not playing for New South Wales." And he goes, "Well, you've been picked in the side." I said, "Well, mate, I'm not playing." I said, "They can't make me." And he goes, "Well, they can." And he goes, "And it's an automatic 2 week suspension if you don't play."
Wow.
So, and I know that they probably won't like to hear the story, but mate, I went into that the camp. I had to turn up to the camp, and I pretty much flat out refused to. And they said, "Well, you have to." And I said, "Well, I've got a sore knee, so I can't." And and I'd been given the rundown on how to go about it.
Yeah.
So I said, "I've got a sore knee and I can't play." And they said, "Well, get in the team photo and all the rest of it, and we'll get the team doctor to have a look at you." So I've jumped in the New South Wales reserve grade team photo and all the rest of it. I'm up in the photo, just standing there, a bit staunch looking. I don't want to be here, and I'm thinking there's no way I'm going to play against Queensland, and
Yeah.
I would never have lived that down had I have. And it turned out that I said to the doctor, I've got a sore knee, and they ruled me out on the Wednesday for the game, and then on the Saturday I drove up to with the team bus, or Friday we drove up to the team bus to Newcastle and made my debut on Saturday. So it was a miraculous recovery. I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
I remember Ian Hindmarsh, he made his debut the same day. And
Yeah.
but yeah, that was my debut. Look, I was as nervous as anything, mate.
Of course.
Obviously, playing against a great side like Newcastle,
Yeah.
it was pretty full on. And I remember we were winning up until probably about the last 40 seconds. And Billy Peden, he scored under the sticks to win it. But look, I didn't have a bad game or anything. I actually set up Ian Hindmarsh in his debut for a try and
Wow.
played quite well. I wouldn't say it was great, but done okay. And it was not the I didn't get the win that I was hoping for, but I certainly felt like I held my own.
Yeah, very nice, mate. Now, in footy circles, everyone has a nickname. Obviously, yours is PJ, but did you have any other sort of nicknames while you were playing?
To be honest, not really. Nah, like
Okay.
I know I got a couple of mates that call me Swampy. Obviously,
Yeah, nice.
no
Marsh, yeah, of
Swampy,
course.
and mate calls me same bloke. He sort of tried to take it off, tried to kick it off. A fair few boys call me Bitzer because they reckon I've just got a bit of every race in me, and because many New Zealanders tried to claim us as being Māori.
Yeah.
Then obviously on my father's side, we have got Aboriginal blood, and then I've got the curly hair that everyone used to always say I look like I'm a little bit Lebanese or something. Playing for Parramatta, living in Parramatta,
Of course, of course.
but nah, not really. Look, but PJ was pretty standard, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, that's it. I love it. Mate, who was your footy idol when you were growing up?
Look, I obviously had a couple, but the early days, look, I loved Alan Langer.
Mm,
I still remember the day that I started watching him, and I was always a small kid growing up. Like I was really small. A lot of people like say, "Oh, you're not even that sort of big now." Like, but I mean, I was really small,
yeah,
and
okay.
I never thought I'd really get to the NRL because of that. It was holding me back for a number of years. I remember when I was 15, I sort of quit for about a year and started playing a lot of touch football because I just physically, as strong and as tough as I thought I was, I couldn't handle them. The guys, they were just so big. But look, Alan Langer, mate, he was such a little guy, and
Yeah.
he was obviously just someone I just really looked up to and thought, wow, I want to play in the NRL. If he can do it, then sort of I can. And I remember in the later years, when I got a little bit older, later schooling years, had a good mate of mine, one of my best mates, Glenn O'Davis, and obviously his brother Robbie was
Mm.
another small guy, and he'd come on, and I met him a few times and thought that was pretty special. And so I used to follow Robbie a bit as well. So,
Yeah,
but
nice, mate.
yeah, you obviously, got your favourites and things like
Of
that.
course.
And then when I got older, obviously, look, while I was even playing, Matt Bowen was my favourite player. I
Okay.
loved him, mate. The
Yeah.
things he done, he was just a freak of nature, and I loved watching him, and I loved playing against him, even though you could never touch him. He was that good. But yeah, a couple of idols there, and a couple of people I really looked up to. But Alan Langer would have to be the man.
I love that, mate. Yeah, Mengo, he was a great player. Mate,
100%.
let's talk about Origin. Now, obviously, you played for Queensland. Let's start off with what was that like and how was that build up? And then the hatred that they talk about, was that instilled in you guys?
Yeah, it certainly is. It's still
Yeah.
there now. You just don't like them. There's something
Yeah.
about them. And I look at them as like they're the city slickers. Um, and it's always been like that. It's like when you live in the country and you
Yeah.
come into town. Like I was from way out west, and you'd come into Rockhampton, which is the city. They to me were the New South Wales of my junior days. You know, they were the city guys and
Yeah.
we're the country kids, and you always wanted to beat them.
Yeah.
But look, yeah, definitely, it was just the most amazing thing I've ever,
Mm.
in rugby league, obviously. Obviously, there's many things outside of rugby league that are better. But for rugby league, it was the most amazing thing ever. Every kid that plays rugby league, that's probably the ultimate to
Yeah.
play for Queensland. And it was amazing. Like, I just happened to, my debut just happened to be, I was a hooker, obviously, and I was passing the ball to Alan Langer. It gives me
Yeah.
goosebumps now.
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
passing the ball to Alan Langer, and then at training, getting out of dummy half, running a bit, and kicking crossfield to Robbie O'Davis. So here I am making my debut
With your idols.
with two of the guys I just watched on TV and just thought,
Yeah.
wow. And so it was just the most amazing experience, when it comes to rugby league. I'd never actually ever been to Lane Park ever.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
and 2 days beforehand, we were going to be playing there. I think it was in '03. Sorry, that wasn't my debut. That was in '03. I think it was when they returned back to Lane Park, Suncorp Stadium now. But yeah, so that was another thing for Origin, far out.
Yeah.
First time I'd ever been to Lane Park, it was to be playing. Well, I did an interview there, sorry. I did do a captain's run, and then 2 days later played there, which was, something special as well. And that just happened to be in a Queensland jersey. And yeah, it was pretty special, mate.
Yeah.
I can't say how it makes you feel. It's just all that hard work and from just a kid from little town Blackwater in Central Highlands in Queensland to be on the big stage, having all those people back home supporting us and stuff. It was pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely the pinnacle of the game. To represent your state, yeah, it brings so much joy, mate. You spoke about Alfie Langer. I've heard so many stories, and what a character of the game. But mate, was there a funniest teammate that you played with?
Oh, look, there's a lot of blokes that just created some funny moments, but
Yeah.
Dean Witters used to have an alter ego and he'd bring people up. That was quite funny. He'd put on the best blackfella voice you ever come across, and he'd ring up the football manager, and he'd do some really funny stuff. Look, I
Oh,
lived with Eric Grafe Jr. for a little while. That
okay,
was
that would have been
that
good.
was a that was an experience, mate. One of the loveliest, nicest blokes you'll ever come across.
Yeah.
But I must admit, he provided us with some of the funniest moments I've ever come across in football, mate. He said it. It's his words. He used to play football because it paid the bills, but he was a super talent. Mark Riddell, some of these
Yeah.
guys that he played with, but definitely some funny guys. But Eric Grafe Jr., mate, he was definitely one that some of the things he used to do, just the excuses why he couldn't train and stuff like that, they were just outrageous, and it come down to that he just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And but yeah, definitely lots of different funny stuff, mate, over my time playing. Look, Mark Tukey was another one.
Yes.
His words. I always tell people. If some people say to me, who's the toughest player and all these sorts of things you play with, and the best player and you've played against, and one of the questions sometimes comes up, who's the hardest trainer? And I always like to think it was me, and I'd say, well, I trained hard, but mate, Mark Tukey was one of the harder trainers I've come across. Maybe not the hardest, but he was one of the hardest. And everyone goes, really, Big Tukes? And they sort of got that about him. And I said, yeah, mate, he was. But I said, but his words, not mine, but he
Mm.
could eat harder.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because, mate, he always carried a few extra kgs, the big fella, but
Yeah.
he was a talent, Mark Tukey. He was very.
Yeah, we've had him on. We interviewed him a couple of months back. He's a great guy too. He's
Oh,
awesome.
it's champion, mate. Look, he was very unlucky in, I think, 02, 03 not to play
Yeah,
Origin, mate. I really thought he should have. He was on fire at the Warriors for those few years.
yeah, absolutely. Look, on the back of that, we've talked about the funniest. Who was the strangest teammate you played alongside? Just a weird cat.
Oh, I'll tell you what. Look, Mick Vella.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Mick Vella was out there. I'll tell you, he was different. Just for the fact that he didn't look like a rugby league player.
Yeah.
Um, you talk about coordination. Most sports people are very coordinated and very can do most sports. You give
Yeah.
them a golf stick or you give them something, and they're relatively pretty handy at most sports. Mick Vella was the most uncoordinated bloke I've ever seen. Even right down to his running style, he had legs and they'd just be going everywhere. But obviously a great rugby league player.
Yeah. That's right.
Knows what he's done in the game. But look, Mick was out there. He'd always toss up some really really funny stuff. But good guy. But yeah, definitely out there.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, mate. Look, we talk about the teams you played for. Obviously, you played for Para and then the Bronx you finished up with, but you went over the ditch to New Zealand. What was that like going to a different country and playing footy over there?
Yeah, look, at first I was. It probably helped that I was young.
Hmm.
All I wanted to do was play rugby league. That's
Yeah,
all I've ever wanted to do since I was 8 years old. Since the day I turned up for the Wallabies, it's all I've ever wanted to do. I wanted to be a professional rugby league player, and I just did whatever I had to do to give myself the opportunity to. And I believe at Parramatta at the time, I thought that I'd done my apprenticeship, and I played really really well in the 2000 season in reserve
yeah,
grade. I was reserve grade player of the year that year. Um, and then got a number of games. I think I had 10 or 11 first grade games that year. And then in 01, the following year, played almost every game and we went through it right through to the grand final. And
grand final.
I
Yeah,
thought I'd done, yeah, and I thought I'd done my apprenticeship. And I thought, well, I'm definitely going to be a starter next year. And towards the end of that 01 season, I remember they signed Adam Dykes, which was a very established halfback
yeah,
and was a good player in his own right. And it sort of just threw me back a little bit. And I thought, oh, well, there's another guy that, you know, I'm competing with. And it seems like they sort of weren't showing a lot of faith in me. But I'm saying that, football's football. And I remember it just so happened that Daniel Anderson, my reserve grade coach in '99 when we won the premiership with Para, was over at the Warriors and they were doing really well and they were going places. And he made contact with me and I'm good friends with him, still to this
yeah,
day, we're good mates. And he said, mate, would you be interested in coming over? And I said, well, is there some opportunities to get a starting spot? And he said, mate, we've got the number 6 is available. And I said, mate, sign me up. And,
yeah. Nice.
the deal was done. And, going over there, it was going to be, it was different. Like I said, I was young, so I just didn't really care. I was just,
Yeah,
let's go. But I know it was a little bit tough at the time because I'd only been with my partner at the time for about 6 months, 8 months. But, and I just thought far out. I really, I wanted to come, but I don't know whether she will. And
yeah,
that obviously played on my mind a little bit as well. But I just straight away said, look, I want you to come. And let's go. Um,
yeah. Good.
so that sort of fell into place as well. And yeah, I just wanted an opportunity, and that's what I got. I went over there, and Daniel gave me the opportunity. It was a little bit of a hiccup. I know I'd done my ankle quite bad at training run pretty early on, and missed a bit of the off season, and things weren't looking good. And then I started at 6. I think I only played one game at 6. Monty Beetham done his knee in the very first game of the year,
Oh wow.
and it turns out like these are the things that I think the universe, something in the universe, that happens. It's
Yeah.
it's it's meant to be because Daniel Anderson, I wanted to talk to him. I'd asked, can I come have a chat to you after the first game? And Ando said, oh, it's funny because I wanted to have a chat to you. And I said, well, he said to me, well, what do you want to, what's happening? And I said, well, mate, Monty's out, mate. I said, I'd love to play hooker. And he goes, really? And he was just thrown back a bit. And he goes, well, I was about to ask you, did you want to? And I wanted you to. And I said, well, mate, I want to play hooker.
Oh, that's good.
As I said, I played a fair bit of hooker at Parramatta off the bench.
Mm,
But and I played a lot of touch football as a kid too. I was an Australian under 20s player and all the rest of it. And
Yeah.
schoolboy stuff. So scooting out of dummy half was always my thing, and I was happy. I really wanted to play there, and he said, "Well, it's the 9 jersey's yours." And he goes, "We've got a young kid that's only really young, but we think we can bring him into the 6, but probably not to the 9." And that was young Lance O'Hire.
Oh, yes.
And what an amazing football player like he was. He was far out. I can't believe how young he was. He's only 18
Yeah.
at the time, but he stepped right in and never looked back. But yeah, so that was it. New Zealand, and then I fit in really well at 9,
Yeah.
and it just went from there. New Zealand, it's a special place for me now. I proposed to my partner at the time and now wife. And we've made many of friends over there. It's a real special place for us, and I love New Zealand. The people are just amazing. Had I have not injured myself, I believe I may have stayed there for good.
Yeah, I love it, mate. It's I love New Zealand. We went there on our honeymoon, my wife and I as well. It's a wonderful place. Mate, let's talk about after you finished footy. Now, did you stay involved in the game?
Um, it gets a little bit tough for me. Talking about life after football.
Okay.
Things are very good now.
Yeah.
I'd say for the first sort of 2 years, 3 years after I finished football, I struggled a lot. I didn't know what I was going to do. I felt like the game had abandoned me.
Yeah.
Um, I hurt myself playing rugby league.
Hmm.
I hurt myself a number of times playing the game. Um, for 2, 3 years after football, I found myself paying medical bills to get operations done, having to fight to get money from clubs to
Hmm.
pay for operations. Because I retired medically. And although I've been able to muck around and do things ever since, I've still never ever been the same. I've learnt to live with it.
Yeah.
But life after football was really, really tough for me for about 2 years. I didn't want anything to do with rugby league.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with it at all. I went out west back to a small town out near where I was from, Middlemount, and worked in the mines. And like I said, I proceeded to have 2 more operations on my back and had neck trouble and all the rest of it. And um, to the point where I didn't even want my kids to play. My oldest boy wanted to play footy, and I didn't want him to. He was signed up for golf, for tennis, had him signed up for everything else. But then, I think my wife signed him up when I was away getting one of my operations. I came home because his mates at school were playing. He was only
Yeah.
7 at the time, I think, 7 or 8. And I came home and he signed up, and I said to my wife, I'm not real keen on it. Just for the sheer fact that, like I said, I just felt like I'd been just abandoned.
Yeah.
You know, the odd phone call, unless you stay involved like totally in media and this and that and whinge and carry on, it seems like they don't care.
Yeah.
Um, any other job that you hurt yourself in, they'll look after you.
Yeah.
You get work cover, things like that. But rugby league, very different. I understand that it was my choice to play rugby league, so that's why I have moved on. I've moved on, and I'm very, very happy now. And my boys play rugby league. They love rugby league, and
Yeah.
I've seen the smiles it brings to their faces when they play. And they're both very talented rugby league players. They're both, I believe, on their way to play in the NRL one day. But look, life after footy, and I've in probably the last 2 or 3 years, got a little bit more involved again. Whereas I'm helping coach my youngest boys' club footy team, and really enjoy it, mate. And I really want to give back. And I think that obviously I love rugby league, mate. Yes,
Yeah.
there were some tough times, but I love rugby league, and it's made me who I am today, and the person I am, and I just I've even started watching a little bit more on TV again in the
That's
recent
great.
years, but and hopefully those Warriors can buddy keep winning some games. But look, I am involved a little bit, eh? I
Yeah.
love
Nice.
wherever I can be involved.
Of course.
Sometimes like I said, I love watching my boys play.
Yeah.
They're both, I'm their biggest fan. I think they're both great players. They're both very talented. They're a lot more talented than I ever was, but we'll see how they progress.
Oh, that's great, mate. It's an awesome little story there, and that brings us to our next question. What is one piece of advice that you could give a young player coming through?
Look, I always tell people, and young fellas in particular, and young people, you'll always be given a chance.
Yeah,
Um, it doesn't mean that you'll stay there or you'll have a long NRL career or a long sporting career or business career, whatever it is. Young people in general, I always say you'll be given a chance if you want one.
yeah,
So, and what I mean by that is, if you want to be an NRL player, then you are given the chance every day of the week to train. So that therefore you train, you do that, and right through to then when one day you're playing reserve grade, you're playing well, and the coach comes up to you like Brian Smith did to me and said, "Hey PJ, you've been playing really, really well. We're gonna give you a shot this week in first grade." You know, you're always given a chance. It doesn't mean you're
yeah,
going to stay there. You know, I've got a really good mate of mine, Paul White. He's the CEO of was the CEO of the Brisbane Broncos for many years, and he was my first ever senior coach at Rockhampton Brothers, and I was 17 at the time. And he come up to me, and this is after off season of training, and I thought that I wasn't going to make rugby league. Everything was doom and gloom. I didn't have no scholarships or anything, and I just thought far out my dream of playing in the NRL slipping away. And I just trained really, really hard. And I was a bit of a nuisance as a kid, you know, and and I just trained really, really hard. And Paul White, I remember, come up to me and just goes, "Mate, I'm going to give you a run this weekend in first grade." And he goes, "I don't know if you can play football. I've never seen you play football." He goes, "But all I know is I've seen you train." And he goes, "And I've never seen anyone train like you ever." And
yeah,
he goes, "So I'm going to give you a chance." And that's what I say to young people.
yeah,
You get given a chance. And why do you even said it? He goes, "Whether you stay there in first grade, like in A grade for Rocky Brothers, determines on how you actually play on the weekend." He
yeah,
goes, "Just because you can train really, really well doesn't mean I'm going to keep you there." He goes, "You've obviously got to play well." But he give me you'll get given a chance, you know. So, and that's so long as you work hard. So, you know, it's probably the message in all of that is work hard, and
yeah.
you'll get given your chance, and then it's totally up to you how well you play. You know, um, it's like when I talk to people, you know, you've got to work hard. I talk to people, they say to me, "PJ, can you come and have a yarn to the under 15s on grand final day?" And you're like, "Of course I can.
Yeah,
It ain't going to make them play any better,
yeah,
but I
that's
can
right.
certainly come and have a chat to them." And that's the thing, you know, me chatting to them on grand final day isn't going to make them play any better. It's what they done 6 months before that, or 4 months before that. It's the hard work that they put
Yeah,
in leading up to the game. But I can certainly come and say, put everything into practice. It is, you know, people say things like, "Oh, you know, it's not just another game." Well, it is.
yeah,
It's just another game. You know, it's not today's not the day to try a chip and chase if you're a number 10 front row.
yeah, yeah,
If you haven't
exactly.
practiced it, you know what I mean? But no, look, yeah, long,
Love it.
long, long answer there, bro. But look, I would say work hard and you'll get given a chance at anything you want. Whether you
Yeah,
stay there is up to you and how well you play or how well you perform, or, you know, if it's in business, you know, whether you're turning up, doing the work, putting the hours in. So, but I'm a big believer in working hard.
I love it, mate. That's some great advice there. Now, before we finish up, can you give us an early prediction for 2024? I know we're 4 rounds in this weekend, but who's your prediction to take it home?
Well, normally I'd always say things like you can never back against Melbourne, but I really think people they're catching them now.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really think, and look, I'm a big Harry Grant fan. Obviously,
yeah,
look, I'm living up where he is and where he's from, Yeppoon. I went to the same school as him. Um, he's a favourite of mine and stuff like that. I think I'd love to see him do well. I think the captaincy this year, he might be. I'd like to see him just get back to just bloody running his football and stuff when he carves up.
yeah,
Um, look, like I said, say you never can write them off, but they don't seem to have that aura anymore. But mate, I'll be honest. I think it's all sort of open. Look,
yeah,
I'm just hopeful the Warriors can just do something. You know, I think they've got the team. They're a lot more consistent
definitely.
than usual. They really are, and I think you know, Roger. coming back. I think
Oh,
that's
he's
going to be
so good.
good.
He's so
Yeah,
good.
mate.
Oh,
He is very good. And I think once he starts running those lines like he has been, I think people underestimate how big he actually is.
yeah.
He is quite a big man. And
Named at fullback this week too. So
oh, is he really?
yeah,
Yeah,
because
okay.
Tua Picky's out and Chance isn't back yet, so it should be good.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's what I mean. See, I follow it and I watch a bit here and there. I watch a bit of highlights, but still not watching, sitting down watching every game. But look, I'd love to see the Warriors do well. And look, I think they
Mm,
will be up there. And
yeah,
same with Brisbane. I think Brisbane will definitely be up there. I know
yeah,
they've lost Reece Walsh, but look, personally, I think young Tristan Sailor, I think he goes really, really well there. I think he's a worker and he's very much out of the same mold. You know, like he'll try a little grubber through the line or a chip on play three. And,
yeah,
you know, I love seeing that sort of stuff because it's very much, I know at junior levels, it's very much is coached out of kids now just to play off the cuff. And I love seeing Tristan Sailor and Reece Walsh do those things that, you know, Sean Johnson used to do.
yeah,
But mate, look, prediction. I'm just hopeful that the Warriors can go well, mate. I think they can.
yeah.
And as I said, Brisbane definitely will be there somewhere. And look, obviously the Panthers, mate. They're just. I think they're still in a bit of a class of their own, mate.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
just.
They just keep churning them out. I
Oh,
don't know how they do it.
they just keep frustrating me. But look, when you got a good culture, I think it's and I think they have kept, you know, Nathan Cleary. I'm sorry, but
Right. Yeah.
he's good, mate.
Oh, yeah.
He's a superstar. He's got a highlights reel of a bloke that's played for bloody 15 years, and he's been in the game for about 5. You know, like
Yeah.
it's unbelievable, mate. He is good. But look, I'd say those few teams, mate. Definitely the Panthers, and but look, then you've got all these smoky sides that are doing stuff every like one week they're getting flogged, and the next they're doing something. The Bulldogs, like
Yeah. Yeah.
realistically, the
Exactly.
Bulldogs, I reckon by next year, I know people talk about rebuilding and all this sort of stuff. You should never be rebuilding. I
Yeah.
understand that there is in the background rebuilding, but look, you should be trying to win a comp every single year. But look, the Bulldogs, mate, they're starting to look better and better every year, their roster. And I think
Got a
it's,
great squad.
yeah, I'm with you, mate, squad.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. But look, Panthers, Melbourne, Brisbane, and then I'm hopeful with the Warriors.
I love it, mate. I love it. Well, it's all we got time for on this interview. This interview is brought to you by Game Day Squad. Don't forget to check out Game Day Squad now. It's fantasy football with a twist. You get little card packs that you can open and put your players in there. I've got Harry Grant as my starting hooker this week, so that should be really good. So check that out, Game Day Squad. We do have some comps running as well, the Ruck Infringement Pod there. We just want a big shout out to PJ. Thank you for jumping on, mate. Really appreciate it. This episode obviously has dropped as you're listening now. And tune in for our next one. All right. See you later, everybody.